The instant Emily, the bogus daughter, wrongly blamed me and kicked me out of the house, the entire family suddenly caught wind of her thoughts. To her, Mr. Thompson was just a walking ATM, and Mrs. Thompson was nothing but a dumb old nag. Emily kept soaking up the love and attention like a spoiled flower, totally clueless that everyone had just seen through her act. At the hospital, Emily was lying there, her long curly hair tangled in bandages. Her face was pale, with streaks of tears from her restless sleep. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, Ethan, don't leave me. I'm freaking out. Lily says I stole her stuff and wants to punish me. I'm so scared, she mumbled in her dreams. My parents and brother Ethan looked at me with teary eyes. I was the real daughter who had been missing for 16 years. Once found, Emily tried every trick to set me up. This time, she tripped down the stairs just passing by me. I clenched my fists. I didn't push her. She fell on her own. But clearly, the favored one could never do wrong. Whether I spoke up or not, they only believed what they wanted to believe. Ethan smirked. Emily's scared of pain, Lily. You're saying she messed herself up? She cares too much about her looks to risk a scar on her forehead. Even Mr. Thompson looked disappointed. Lily, with your grades, I thought you had our morals. Never thought you'd pick up bad habits and go so far as to hurt your sister. Mrs. Thompson, her heart aching for Emily, even got down on her knees, begging me, don't chase after your sister. Understand her. She's been fragile since childhood. She can't handle this. What they didn't know was that when Emily had those people force me to drink toilet water, she was much stronger than now. It's ironic, really. Switching me with the help of a maid, Emily had stolen my life. And now I was expected to sympathize with her, the beneficiary. Emily woke up then, slowly opening her eyes. They were red and swollen. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, Ethan, don't be mad at Lily. Maybe she just wants your affection and can't stand me being around. I really did fall down the stairs by accident. It's no biggie. Her eyes darted around, fearful of me. When the doctor brought in the reports showing Emily only had a mild concussion, Ethan lost his patience. Lily, you're just like those country folks, only after our money. And that's why you can't stand Emily. Finally, they decided they couldn't handle it anymore and discussed sending me back to the village where I was raised. Lily, we know we wronged you by losing you those years, but your behavior is unbearable. We'll send you living expenses regularly, but you can't stay here. I took a deep breath, giving them a grim smile. If we were a real family, why the fake search for me? I worked my butt off for your fake daughter for 16 years, and you never checked in. Now that I've seen through it, I'm out on my own. Hit by my words, they fell silent. I left with the tattered school uniform I'd arrived in. Just as I turned to leave, a sudden voice echoed that we all heard. It was Emily happily ranting, "These idiots finally did something useful. All my efforts paid off. Now the family's fortune will be mine." Way overplayed at this point. It hurt so bad. Hope it doesn't leave a mark. Shocked, my parents and brother stared at her. But Emily, clueless, kept up her tear-stricken act. She threw a loving glance at Ethan, her eyes showing an odd shyness. Ethan is so handsome and sweet, took time off just for me. At least there's a silver lining. Confirming the voice was Emily's sent a chill through Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. I was puzzled too. Clearly she wasn't speaking out loud. So how did we hear her voice? "Emily, what are you saying?" Mrs. Thompson asked, trembling. Disbelief etched on her face. Mr. Thompson frowned, touching her forehead. "The fever's gone. It can't come back. Why is she rambling nonsense?" Emily looked confused. "Mr. Thompson, I wasn't speaking." "Maybe you heard it wrong." But then everyone heard her again. Get your filthy hands off. I wouldn't pretend to call you Dad if you weren't loaded. How'd you manage to have such a handsome son?" Mr. Thompson quickly pulled his hand back, his face darkening. Emily blinked innocently. "Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, you're still sending Lily away, right?" "What's up?" Mrs. Thompson stifled her shaking, forced a scratchy voice, and finally, with one last glance at me, said, "Forget it. I acted rashly. We worked hard to find Lily. We should be patient and keep her." Mr. Thompson nodded, almost against his own will. "Yeah, our company is big enough for more kids. No need to kick out our biological child." Emily panicked at this. Are you sure you want Lily living here with me? Look at my injury. She raised her bandaged head. Damn, check out these wounds. What's up with this old nag's menopause? If the thief isn't kicked out, I'm forever an imposter. She's supposed to love me the most, and look at the crazy old man. Enough wealth? Eager to share it with strangers? Though Emily pouted like she'd agree, inside her forehead creased. Well, guess I'll have to do my best to get along with Lily. Meanwhile, Ethan seemed restless, mumbling he'd imagined it all. Emily couldn't have said those things. I started chuckling internally. Is it so hard for him to accept his sister's true self? But if everyone hears Emily's thoughts now, more truths will unfold. Once she was discharged, Emily returned to school, sharing the ride with me this time. Emily raised an annoyed eyebrow. Can you believe she has the nerve to look all grubby and ride in the same car with me? The driver said, Madam instructed that Miss Lily and Miss Emily should be driven to school together from now on. Emily and I are in the same class. During a break, this tall, burly upperclassman swaggered to the classroom door. I'm here for my sister. The moment I spotted him, a chill ran through me like a snake wrapped around my ankle. That was Ryan, the school bully who had a thing for Emily. Emily calls him her brother because of his size, and thanks to him, she's been able to lead her gang of mean girls around the school. Ryan's always looked out for her because he practically dotes on his sister, even tormenting me once. He had a group of guys drag me to a little grove and humiliated me mercilessly. Those experiences are nightmares I dare not revisit. This time, when Ryan came to see her, Emily walked up to him with a slight frown, but still sweetly called him brother. The next second, Ryan picked up on her thoughts. So annoying, Ryan's here again today, and he reeks of sweat. Ugly bastard, not even close to being as good as my brother. If you weren't useful, I wouldn't get so close to you, you stink. Surface level friends, right? I was shocked to learn Emily even hated her own ally. Not only did she curse him in her mind, she mocked him too. Ryan's face flushed with disbelief. Sis, I'm here to take you to lunch. What are you even talking about? Clueless, he hugged her waist playfully. Really, I want to try that new Hokkaido spot at Elephant City. Can you take me? As she spoke, she turned her head away, unable to hide her disdain. This waist is just gross. He looks like some thug with a toothpick. No choice now to teach a lesson. I've got to play along and wrap him around my finger. Ryan's smile turned stiff, but Emily still tugged on his arm, whining, Ryan, brother. I didn't come to school a few days ago because Lily pushed me down the stairs. I've got a scar on my forehead. Boo-hoo. She immediately played the victim, pointing at me for Ryan to take action. Ryan's dad was the biggest investor in this fancy school, so no one dared challenge him. But this time, Ryan didn't raise a hand against me like usual. As the warning bell rang, his expression was odd. Emily, just rest for now. It's almost class time. I gotta go. For the first time, Ryan shook off Emily's hand, leaving her baffled. Emily puzzled over why Ryan cared about the bell for the first time. After school, the thing that drove Emily to the edge happened. On break from college, her brother, who hadn't had a girlfriend before, brought one home. There, on the couch, sat a long-haired girl, one of Ethan's classmates, in a white strappy dress, exuding maturity and elegance compared to Emily's youthful looks. The moment Emily saw her, her eyes widened in disbelief, and she threw a childish fit. Bro, didn't you say you didn't want to date and just wanted to be in the lab? Why are you seeing someone? Her brother thought it was typical jealousy and tried comforting her. Feelings are uncontrollable. Are you seeing someone? Her brother thought it was typical jealousy and tried comforting her. Feelings are uncontrollable. When you're older, you'll date too, and having a girlfriend doesn't change you being my treasured sister. Knowing tantrums didn't work, Emily's eyes turned red. Do you remember, bro? You said you'd protect Emily forever? If I wasn't getting married, you wouldn't get a girlfriend. Always being my protective tree. She softened her voice, and sure enough, Ethan felt a pang of guilt. But he remained stern as he continued. Those were childhood promises. Having a sister-in-law just means more protection for you. Even if you're wronged, I'll always be there for you. Yet Emily continued her meltdown, crying even louder. Everyone there heard her furious inner thoughts. Look at the chick my brother's dating. Bet she's not even that pure. I liked him first. How do I break them up? Maybe drug her and ditch her at a club. The girl visibly flinched, and Ethan was about to comfort her, but found Emily clinging onto his arm first. But at her touch, Ethan instinctively shook off her hand. His eyes met hers with a mix of unfamiliarity and disgust. Emily, you're almost an adult. You should know the boundaries between men and women, even with family. Emily froze, looking at her hand in disbelief, then pouted. I just hugged you. Is that so much to ask for now, bro? She whined. Meanwhile, I quietly munched on sunflower seeds, enjoying the chaos. Emily glared at the girl on the couch, and again we all picked up on her spiteful thoughts. Stupid witch, just loves to seduce men. My brother never dated anyone before this. She's just using him for money. That girl finally couldn't take it, stood up with red eyes, and turned to Ethan. Ethan, I know I'm not good enough for you, but I didn't expect your sister to hate me. Your family's world is beyond me. Let's break up. She politely bowed to my parents with tears in her eyes, grabbed her bag, and left without looking back. Don't go. Ethan rushed out, but couldn't catch up. When he returned, breathless with red eyes, he was barely controlling his anger. Enough! His voice clenched, full of rage at Emily's smugness. Emily, you're my sister. There's nothing between us. Get over it. Emily, you're my sister. There's nothing between us. Get over it. His voice was firm and final. Emily's face showed a flicker of panic, not expecting him to see through her. Bro, what are you talking about? You know exactly what I mean. Ethan's patience snapped, his forehead veins pulsing, far from his usual gentle self. She stood stunned for a long time, realizing no one was defending her. Under her parents' complex gaze, she ran to her room in tears. Now I fully pieced it together. When you're close enough, you can hear her every thought. A small smile played on my lips. Since fate seems to want to help me out, I'm taking back what's rightfully mine. When everyone else had gone to sleep, Emily texted me to meet her on the balcony. I followed silently. She blamed everything on me, smirking defiantly. Don't think I don't know. It's because you stirred up trouble and spread lies that my brother has distanced himself from me. I smiled, unfazed. What did I stir up? What lies did I spread? If anyone has inappropriate feelings for their brother, isn't it you? That's when Emily started to realize. So it was you. Did you sneak a peek at my phone and tell him? You're just despicable. She bit her lip. You think you can take my spot with those little tricks? Dream on. My brother said he'd protect me forever and you'll always be an outsider. Emily was still living in the fantasy she'd built for herself, but she didn't know that fake affection couldn't fill the void of security I lacked growing up. What I want is a future I fought for. Emily thought she had me cornered, then strolled off in her silky pajamas after seeing me drop my gaze on my way back inside. I overheard my mom on the phone in her room. She had asked her friend, a gym teacher at a prestigious high school, to find out if I was being bullied. I started hatching a plan. The next day on the way to school, I purposely made sarcastic remarks to Emily. She was so mad. She was clenching her teeth, but had to keep up her sweet image around others. The whole day, I could feel her eyes burning a hole in my back. I knew Emily was waiting for me to be alone, out of sight of everyone. Couldn't possibly let her down, right? During the break, when Emily and her crew ditched class as usual, I slipped away to the restroom. I caught a glimpse of the female teacher who had followed me from a distance. As expected, I was cornered in the deserted bathroom outside. Emily stepped on my shoulder blade with her shoe, looking down on me with a sinister smile, like a wicked demon. You sure got guts, Lily. Why aren't you so bold now? One of the girls joined in. Emily, is this the imposter daughter trying to claim kinship? Disgusting. Emily's tall and beautiful, clearly rich, but her dark scrappy must be some mutt from God knows where. I suddenly found it funny. To protect Emily's ego and status, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson didn't want her to be exposed as a fake heiress, so they said we were sisters and I was a long-lost daughter, found, but here she was telling people I was a sham. Her vanity peaked, a smile forming on her lips. Then they heard a voice. Actually, Lily is your real sister, but so what? I don't want her around. I'm the popular one here. Go ahead, beat her up. In the end, you guys take the blame while I manipulate you morons like a rich princess. It's exhilarating. The girls froze, exchanged glances, whispering among themselves. Emily came back puzzled when they didn't act. Why aren't you doing it? Cut her up. I was too kind before. Now I'll ruin her face, let my brother see her lies. They looked at her differently, hesitated, then shook their heads. Emily, we thought we were friends, but you sure don't treat us that way. What do you mean? We've bullied before? Why stop now? Frustrated, she shoved them aside, ready to do it herself. Just as her hand was about to strike, a strong arm intervened. It was the gym teacher, eyes stern, scanning everyone. Emily recognized her immediately, panicking. Teacher, why are you here? The crew scattered, and the teacher asked Emily what she was doing. She was speechless. I was asking my sister about math. The running's done, so I gotta go. Emily fled while the teacher helped me up. She said she'd report everything to my parents, discovering the truth of Emily's bullying. My parents felt guilty. They put me, along with Emily, in an exclusive math class only a few could attend. They acted normal with Emily, but privately told me, Lily, we're sorry for wronging you before. Emily's too willful. From now on, someone will secretly look out for you at school. Be at ease. We're trying to make up for it. Without Emily knowing, her privileged world was slowly unraveling. Even though I joined the math class only a few months ago, I improved fast and impressed the teacher. He recommended I enter a math competition. I smiled. Really, it wasn't some lucky talent. It was 1 part talent, 9 parts hard work. Back in the public school, I couldn't even afford textbooks. A volunteer teacher saw potential in me, tutoring me on advanced questions. She hoped I'd escape our small village on my own merit. Now, here I am, on the battlefield of my life, determined to fulfill her hopes. On the day I won first prize in the competition, Mr. Thompson booked a big dining hall at our favorite restaurant to celebrate. By 8 p.m., the party had started, but Emily was nowhere to be seen. Grandpa frowned. Her tardiness is her problem. Should we all starve waiting for her? In the 6 months since I returned, the family, influenced by Emily, treated me coolly, except for Grandpa, who adored me, proudly calling me his real granddaughter. He didn't like Emily's spoiled and stubborn ways. He appreciated my maturity more. At this moment, Grandpa raised his glass with great enthusiasm. Today we gathered to celebrate having a math genius in the family. Our ancestors were all about literature, and you're the first to make a mark in math and science. I blushed a little and lifted my cup of tea. Thank you, Grandpa. I'll toast with tea instead of wine, to your health and longevity. Everyone couldn't help but clap for me. At that moment, swallowing a sip of bitter tea, I felt a certain lightness. It was like all the hardships of the past 16 years had finally been washed away. Midway through the dinner, Emily finally showed up, fashionably late. Her hair was a mess, and she wasn't even dressed up. She stormed towards me and poured a glass of red wine all over me, then flipped the table over. Emily, what are you doing? Mr. Thompson's face darkened immediately. It was a big occasion, and not just family and friends were here, but also his business partners. Mrs. Thompson was at a loss, surprised that the usually frail foster daughter had such strength. But Emily didn't care, pointing at me and yelling, "You're all celebrating this country bumpkin while ignoring me." She cheated her way through everything. There's no way she did those tough math problems coming from that backwater. I looked at her in shock, but a smile played at the corners of my mouth. She had been in the math class for years and couldn't even get past the prelims. I'd been in a different class, so she didn't know my progress at all. I calmly wiped the wine off, my face unchanged. So, you're saying I cleverly cheated through the prelims, the regional finals, and all the way to the national level, accidentally winning first place? Mr. Thompson scolded her for being ridiculous. Even in a city-level math competition, there's surveillance. How could your sister possibly cheat? Emily was speechless, meeting my amused gaze. Under the chandelier, even with the wine-stained dress, I was still radiant as ever. Arms folded, I waited patiently. Under everyone's scrutinizing and disdainful looks, Emily was no longer the little princess everyone adored. She completely lost it, slapping me across the face. It's all because of you. I hate that you didn't die in that mountain village. Why did Mr. and Mrs. Thompson have to find you? Covering my face, the sting brought a strange satisfaction. Go crazy, I thought, until you reach rock bottom, until you feel all my pains. Grandpa witnessed everything. He slammed his cane on the floor, his chest rising and falling with anger. We raised you for so many years, and you're this ungrateful? As the family's leader, his outrage made Emily snap back to some sanity, shutting her mouth. But it was too late. Everything she felt came out loud and clear for everyone to hear. Why does Grandpa always favor Lily? I wish he'd just die already. There's still tens of millions for me to inherit. Grandpa, thinking she had actually spoken those treacherous words, pointed at her, trembling with anger. Emily looked puzzled, confused at Grandpa's reaction as if he was having a health scare. Suddenly, he collapsed. Frightened, Emily yelled, "Grandpa, what's wrong?" Everyone panicked and crowded around him. I quickly got his heart medicine from his pocket. Seconds passed, and Grandpa remained motionless on the floor. Emily burst into tears, denying any blame. It wasn't me. He just fainted himself. Get out of the way. A force knocked her aside. It was Ethan. I had already called 911, and Ethan hurried Grandpa to the elevator before leaving. His eyes were red with anger, and he threatened Emily, "If something happens to Grandpa, I won't forgive you." Outside the emergency room, the red light flickered on Emily's pale face. Ethan came back from the corridor, his expression colder than ice. Emily, overwhelmed with injustice, threw herself at him, crying that she hadn't done anything. But Ethan, unable to bear it anymore, slapped her harshly. Enough! Her cries echoed in the hallway and faded to a whimper. I watched the light fade from Emily's eyes as she crumbled to the ground. Then there was another slap. Mr. Thompson gritted his teeth. "If anything happens to Grandpa, I'll never forgive you, and you won't get a single dime of our family's wealth." Even Mrs. Thompson was disappointed. "To think I've wasted 16 years of love, hoping you'd be my child. Some traits can't be changed." Finally, after what seemed like forever, Grandpa was saved from the brink. I breathed a sigh of relief. The first thing Grandpa did when he woke wasn't to call for Mr. or Ethan, but to ask specifically for me. Next to his hospital bed, looking frail, Grandpa tried to smile. He motioned for me to lean in. When I did, he revealed his decision. Mr. Thompson had grown lazy, wasting his years, and Ethan was too immersed in his experiments, uninterested in business. Grandpa had bypassed them, leaving the inheritance to me. "I've arranged for you to study business overseas, Lily. I hope you'll come back and lead the company to a brighter future." Holding Grandpa's hand tightly, a tear escaped me. Maybe I wasn't as cold-hearted as I thought. Maybe I did long for family warmth. As I left the hospital, daylight spread across the sky. My phone chimed with a notification in the family group chat. Emily was threatening to take her life, claiming she wanted to apologize for her wrongs if everyone saw her that way. She even sent her real-time location. "Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, Ethan, if any of you ever cared for me, come say goodbye." We rushed over, witnessing her on the rooftop as a dozen police cars arrived, trying to calm her down. But I knew she wasn't going to jump. Because she was smart, Emily held on to her identity, eyeing the family's billion-dollar fortune. So she got what I was hinting at and called up some tabloids while she was on her way. Cameras were flashing all around when she got back into the public eye. Emily, for sure, looked more composed, but she still put on quite the show, shouting at the crowd below. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson are siding with the daughter they found, and along with Lily, trying to push me out. I can't take their bullying. I've decided to end it all." Nobody expected it, but her parents and brother didn't seem alarmed. Yet someone did panic below. A tearful woman's voice cried out, telling her not to jump. It was Mary, the nanny who had been fired and Emily's birth mother. The tears Emily had barely managed to squeeze out froze on her face. Meanwhile, the media I brought along went into a frenzy, capturing this dramatic scene of family scandal. "Miss Emily, what's your connection to this nanny? Rumor has it the nanny swapped a baby girl with a wealthy heiress and sold her off into the hills. Is that true? Were you aware?" Questions bombarded Emily, leaving her flustered. She had never faced such humiliation all these years. Just then, the nanny, supported by the crowd, shakily climbed to the rooftop with Emily. Finally, Emily couldn't take it anymore, turning her back as she declared, "I don't know you. Stay back. I'll jump if you come any closer." But as Mary tearfully got closer, Emily silently shouted in disgust, "Get lost! Don't mess up my plans!" Who do you think you are? Some trash picker, old and ugly, fit to be my mom? I'm ashamed to share your blood. What she didn't know was that Mary had developed depression from years of longing for her daughter and guilt towards the family. Hearing Emily's scorn broke her. She gave a sad smile, looked back at me and my parents, and as she jumped, her lips seemed to say just one thing. Sorry. There were airbags set up below, but Mary jumped where there were none. Despite efforts to save her, Mary died. And just like that, the truth of the baby swap was out for all to see. Emily was exposed as a fake heiress, and her bullying of me at school came to light. In no time, Emily's story was everywhere. Front page news. Comments flooded in. Things like, "What a heartless person," to her real mom and her foster family. "No conscience at all. People like this should live on plain porridge the rest of their lives." There truly are people who love nothing, care for nothing but themselves. In the end, I moved back into the mansion I hadn't seen for 16 years and ordered Emily out. She refused to leave, so I had security toss all her belongings out in an hour. She still had on the expensive necklace Ethan gave her. Without hesitation, I tore it off. Jewels scattered everywhere. Some went down the drain, but I didn't care. The only place they shouldn't be is on Emily. Which piece of jewelry on you isn't mine? What makes you think you can still wear it? Emily turned pale, defiantly glaring at me. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, Ethan, my life. You took it all without shame. Now give it back as it was. With every word, I stripped something off her until she was left in nothing but her underwear. I spared her final dignity, watching her shiver in the cold, looking utterly helpless. She sobbed into her hands, her voice hoarse. "You can't do this to me. I'm the daughter who's lived with them for 16 years, Mr. Thompson. Ethan, help me." I kept my eyes fixed on her, a cold smile forming. "Daughter, you've been taking what's mine for 16 years. How does that make you legit? And you, who didn't even have the courage to be yourself, leading to your mother's death, are nothing but a fake." When the media interviewed me, I offered her a place, a 30-square-meter apartment in the city's poorest neighborhood. After all, Emily did spend 16 years with the family. I couldn't just leave her out on the streets. The reporters praised my generosity. But really, I just wanted to see her living in that dirty, noisy slum. Watching her fall from grace, plummeting from heaven to hell. Isn't that something? Like Ryan, the school bully, who fell hard when his wealthy real estate dad went bankrupt. Though he had some cash left, rumor has it Emily ended up with him, doing his laundry and often beaten up because she couldn't keep quiet. As for me, I went abroad to study, then came back to run my grandfather's company, hoping to make his lifelong dream even bigger. The road back was rough, full of mud and stones, but as I set foot on the future, dropping my long-held grudge with hope renewed, what lay ahead was warm and bright under a brilliant spring sky.